In a recent episode of The Joe Rogan Experience, comedian and podcaster Joe Rogan pushed back hard against efforts to display the Ten Commandments in public school classrooms and incorporate Bible stories into education. Rogan highlighted his conversation with Texas State Representative James Talarico, framing mandatory religious displays as forcing one faith on diverse students and potentially repelling people from Christianity rather than drawing them in. Rogan argued that in publicly funded schools, religion should stay out to avoid bigotry toward other beliefs. He suggested the first few commandments, no other gods, no taking the Lord's name in vain, could alienate non-religious or non-Christian families, comparing selective Christian elements to issues like religious law enforcement in other contexts. Critics see this as Rogan demonizing a simple acknowledgement of America's Judeo-Christian roots. The Ten Commandments represent foundational moral principles, honor parents, do not murder, steal, or lie, that transcend strict theology and have influenced Western law for centuries. Allowing voluntary exposure to Bible stories as literature or history isn't indoctrination, it's cultural literacy. Many classics, from Shakespeare to civil rights rhetoric, draw heavily from Scripture. Blocking them risks erasing shared heritage in favor of a sterile secularism. Rogan's stance echoes broader cultural pushes to sideline Christianity in public life under the banner of separation of church and state. Yet the First Amendment prevents establishing a national church. It doesn't demand erasing religious references from education. Historical American schools often included moral instruction rooted in the Bible without controversy. Enter James Talarico. Much of Rogan's perspective drew from Texas Democrat James Talarico, a seminary student who appeared on the show and called the Ten Commandments bill not just unconstitutional and un-American, but deeply unchristian. Talarico, pursuing a Master of Divinity, positioned himself as a voice of authentic faith opposing Christian nationalism. However, Talarico's own words raised serious questions about his standing as a Christian. In a 2021 interview, he described himself as a Christian who hates Christianity. He aligns with progressive Presbyterian circles that often reinterpret core doctrines, downplaying traditional views on sexuality, life issues, and Scripture's authority, in favor of social justice activism. Critics, including conservative Christians, argue this represents a diluted faith that prioritizes politics over historic orthodoxy. True Christianity, across Orthodox traditions, affirms the Bible as authoritative and calls for teaching moral truths. Jesus quoted the Old Testament extensively, and early Christians integrated faith into all of life. Opposing any positive engagement with these texts in schools while claiming Christian credentials strikes many as inconsistent at best. Rogan's platform amplifies voices skeptical of traditional faith in education. While concerns about coercion in diverse classrooms deserve debate, dismissing moral foundations and cultural education as demonization risks cultural amnesia. Bible stories have shaped ethics, literature, and law for generations. Excluding them doesn't create neutrality. It tilts toward secular dogma. A balanced approach might allow opt-in historical study without mandates, respecting pluralism without erasure. Rogan's framing leans heavily toward the latter. Some people forget we are a Christian country that needs to fight to protect our faith in Jesus and must stop any introduction of radical religions such as Islam that only pushes towards violence and never peace. Muslims tend to use their religion as more of a political tool than anything and do not really have a strong faith in God and use it in a way to absolve themselves of political violence.